Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, ladies, gentlemen, unicorns, whatever, and welcome once again to Nerd Week Live here on YouTube, brought to you by the folks at Nerd Caliber. It is again a folk this week. We are again struggling with Concord from New York Comic Con, with travel for other work, with all sorts of with classes, people that are in evening classes, and I even have a mild head cold that somebody at LeakyCon this past weekend, which was the Harry Potter con, gave me, and I don't know who it was, so 20 points from whatever house you're in, whoever you happen to be. Brady, welcome to the show. Kat, welcome to the show. Please don't get a head cold. Well, you can't catch it through this from me anyway, so. But because it is just me, it's probably going to be a pretty quick show, hoping for some interactivity on the chats. Well, wherever it shows up for you guys. Because otherwise I'm going to blast through our 7 topics pretty quickly. What do we have to tease before we get into that? One of the things that we got a very great response at New York Comic Con was our cosplay and photography shootout, our interactive panel, where we randomly paired up cosplayers, photographers, and the audience voted on a bunch of topics that we had, and that's the first time the cosplayers and photographer teams heard of those topics. They were given the topic and sent out, had 20 minutes to make the best image they could. They brought it back, and our panelists critiqued them and picked a winner. During that panel, we talked about how that is, of course, sort of the gist of what we do at the Cosplay and Photography Expo, our own panel. Nicole, welcome. Red, welcome. Christian, welcome to the show. Not our own panel, our own event coming up next July in Mansfield, Mass. And it is 2 days of all panels and workshops on how to do anything in cosplay, how to make foam armor, how to sew basic stuff, how to embroider stitch for hours. Actually, I'm not sure I can tell you how to do that for hours, because that would hurt. Waifu, welcome to the show. And also how to photograph cosplay, all the tips and techniques of photography in general, but specifically of cosplay. And it's a great time. People learn an awful lot. We have a lot of fun. Our experts on either side of the camera are absolute masters in their field. Pretty much the last 3 or 4, not counting this last one, Grandmaster Champions at New York Comic Con are panelists of ours. So, yeah, they know what they're doing. Anyway, we got a great response to that at our panel at New York. So I want to make sure that people who might be interested, and if you're listening to this, you might be interested, Furline the Fur. Hello. Nicole, thanks for being new to the channel. Christian, I am a spry and young 59 years old. As they say, I've seen a thing or two. Jade, welcome to the show. The geek with the blonde hair. Nice to know. So anyway, the Cosplay and Photography Expo. Our current ticket prices for the event next summer are the same as they have been for the last 2 years. 2017 and 2018. We didn't do one this summer. And that will go up by a whopping $5 at the end of November. The first day of December, the price will jump up from $35 for the weekend, super cheap, to $40 for the weekend. So, that said, check it out. CAPE, which is the Cosplay and Photography Expo acronym, cape.nerdcaliber.com. If you're interested in that sort of stuff and you think you might want to go. The advantages of being in Mansfield is we're right on the South Shore commuter rail, which means Amtrak up from New York goes right through it. It's super easy to get to. So check it out. Anyway, moving in to our very first topic. And we're discussing the Venom sequel, Venom 2, or whatever they're calling it currently. And the news that just came out today is that there is a new Marvel villain going to be joining the cast, and that is this character right there. No, that is not a female member of KISS. Bottlemaster, hello, how you doing? And that is Shriek, is the character's name. And Shriek is the girlfriend of Cletus Cassidy, which is Carnage when Carnage is not covered in Carnage. Christian, I do not enough. Christian asks, do I play games? I do, not a ton. Kind of right now more of an MMO player. I do like first-person shooters and first-person adventure or action games. I just got into The Witcher 3 finally, and yeah, so that's me. We have people who are way more dedicated to the gaming community than I am in Nerd Caliber, and I'm also just a PC player. You put a controller in my hand, and I will die instantly. Waifu, that's a good question. I also wonder what she will look like in live action. They haven't cast anybody yet, and that's one thing in the article. They say that they're not narrowing it down on anybody. They're actually at a point where they're expanding the net because they really don't know exactly what they're looking for. I get the impression. Anthony, welcome to the show. Baba Booey, are you saying you're my Baba Booey? Okay, I'll let you do that. So yeah, so the waifu, that's a good point though. We don't know what she'll look like, and the movie comes out in less than a year. Venom 2 hits theaters October 2nd, 2020. So, and it's like the second large theatrical film being made by Andy Serkis. So I don't know if Andy Serkis is like some super speed demon. I don't know if they're going to be cutting back on the special effects. I don't really know what the deal is. We do know because of the spoiler here for anybody who hasn't seen Carnage, but the mid-credit scene, we do know that Woody Harrelson is playing Carnage, so yay. Waifu, yeah, Waifu says she's never seen, or they've never seen, making an assumption there. The first one, only half of it. I saw the whole thing. It was, like pretty much everybody said, it was stupidly enjoyable. But yeah, it didn't. It's not one of those, edge of your seat. You've got to sit through the whole thing. You could, if you had stopped at halfway through, you can go back and finish. I don't even know if you need to see the first half again because there's nothing that needs to be explained there. But yeah, it made a ton of money, so they're definitely doing a Venom 2. The guy who directed Venom, Robert Fleischer, is doing, or just did, Zombieland Double Tap, which pulled him off of, obviously, this project. So Andy Serkis is doing it. We'll see how that goes. But moving on to our next topic. And we'll also see, before we get to that next topic, who they cast for this, because I think that could be, this could be a, Zazie Beetz kind of moment where they cast somebody who's kind of barely known in the industry, and she just owns the role completely, like Zazie Beetz did with Domino in Deadpool 2. And I really hope that's the case. Speaking of people being cast for things, that image up there is both Wayne Brady and the character he has been cast for in the upcoming season of Black Lightning, Gravedigger. He's going to be a regular on season 3, which is cool because Wayne Brady can act as much as everybody thinks of him as, the host of Let's Make a Deal, or the host of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Or actually, is he host now? Anyway, somebody involved with Whose Line Is It Anyway? Jumping back, Christian asked, I wonder what she will look like as a monster. I'm not sure. So Shriek doesn't. I have to look back to check this out. I don't believe Shriek ever gets infected by the symbiote. If I'm wrong, Christian, tell me I'm wrong. But I don't think that happens. I think Shriek always looks like what you saw, that sort of Kiss makeup person. But getting back to this story, Wayne Brady being cast as waifu, that is Gravedigger, one of Black Lightning's nemeses, one of the villains in the Black Lightning canon. And Wayne Brady is going to be playing Gravedigger in the upcoming season of Black Lightning. So this is Tyson Spikes is his non-villain name. He is a veteran. Says here he's a World War II veteran who uses the alias Gravedigger. I'm not really sure how how this happens, that he is a World War II veteran, obviously has something to do with. Um, there we go. Black Lightning will reimagine Gravedigger as a quote super soldier endowed with improved strength, agility, and intelligence. Um, so yeah, there we go. So if there is some sort of super soldier type thing there, that obviously would explain why he would be a World War II veteran. Because if that's the case, he'd be really, really old. So hold on a sec. Turning off my mic for a mild cough. Um, Anthony, but is Wayne Brady gonna have to choke a bench? Wayne's playing a villain. Could be. Um, that upcoming season is launching real soon. End of this month or early November. Doesn't say here. But I know they're finally doing some real crossover with the rest of the CW DC Arrowverse, they call it. So look forward to that. That could be really cool. It would be great to see Wayne Brady pop up in Crisis. I don't know that Gravedigger character ever does in the comics pop up in Crisis on Infinite Earths, but it would be pretty funny if he did. Just doing improv. Probably not the character. Christian, what's your favorite hero? I don't know at this point. When I was younger, I was a huge fan of Daredevil and Vision. But at this point, I don't know. It's tough to say. There's a lot of really good ones out there, and those were comic book versions, not specifically any of the live action versions. Although I have to say, Paul Bettany's Vision in the MCU is fantastic, and Charlie Cox's Daredevil in the Netflix series is really good. But moving on to our next bit of news. That is one of the few images I could grab that actually showed him and showed anything of Robert Downey Jr. in his role as Dr. Dolittle in the upcoming movie Dolittle. The first trailer of that dropped. It looks interesting. It's in here because it's kind of nerdy. It's RDJ, so that's always of interest. But it's also it's combo CGI and live action, and once again, turning off the mic so you don't have to hear that. Yeah, there you go. Iron Man, right there. Christian says, that's Iron Man. Yes, it is. Except it's Dr. Dolittle in the movie that we're talking about. If you look at the trailer, it looks really good. His performance is, of course, fantastic. He's a, slightly less stuck-up jerk. Not stuck-up. Kind of. Self-important jerk. British accent kind of guy than he was when he played Sherlock Holmes, but he's still doing pretty much the same British accent. I mean, he's got the one, and that's what he uses. But I read some interesting stuff on Twitter that apparently the original director of this movie was fired. He was just drastically incompetent and kind of a nut job. Like this was apparently a production assistant or somebody who was on the set while this was happening, and in one of the scenes that involved a great deal of interaction between the live action between Robert Downey Jr. and what will be CGI animals, he didn't block out the actual location of the animals to have RDJ react to. He just figured that CGI, they'll put it in post. Luminous, will it be a musical? There's no indication in the trailer that this is a musical. Although Robert Downey Jr. can sing. Gosh, I'm trying to think of what that track is. He stepped up onto the stage with somebody and killed it. He really can sing. Christian, of course you can tell us something. You're typing into the chat, so you're not telling me. You're telling everybody in the chat. So I'm hoping it's something you want everybody to hear. Fire away if you want to. Anyway, check it out if you're interested in this sort of stuff. It looks really good, despite all of the troubles that apparently were happening on the set while this was going on. Coming out this coming year. I'm trying to think if they have a date in the article here. Wow, January 17th. So it'll be one of the first movies in 2020. Dogo Lover, well, first, welcome to the show, and you taped this live stream because you saw the thumbnail and you love that show. We're a couple of topics away from Lost in Space, Dogo, but I also love the show. I thought they did an excellent job rebooting that, so I was really excited with this new trailer, and so we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are in that trailer when we get up to that point. Anyway, Dolittle, January 17th, 2020. Check out the trailer if you're interested in that sort of stuff. If you want to, go to Twitch or just do a Google search for not Twitch, Twitter, Twitter Dolittle controversy or something like that, and you'll find whatever this stuff was about the original director. They had to bring in apparently two fairly well-known directors to, one, rewrite pretty much everything, and two, reshoot most of what needed to be reshot. So, if you guys are superheroes, Christian's asking if you guys were superheroes, what one, though? I don't know. I'll think about that while we move on to our next topic. Next topic is, so if you are a fan of this, you instantly recognize what just popped up on your screen. I do now, simply because of seeing so many people cosplaying it. It is Lore Olympus. Lore Olympus is a web comic, a web cartoon that is on the platform Webtoons, and is hands down, far and away, the most popular web comic out there right now. Millions of downloads of their comic every time it gets released. And I have to admit, I haven't seen any of it. It was only a few months ago that I really started being able to recognize the difference between this and like Steven Universe characters, because they're all that sort of magenta or blue or primary color, complete color wash. And for the longest time, I thought this was like Steven Universe characters in dress up, but as it turns out, it's Lore Olympus, which is a webtoon about the gods of Olympus as modern characters. What you're seeing up there is Hades and Persephone. Persephone and Hades are kind of the main characters. They spend an awful lot of time touching on a lot of the gods, but these two and the story of Persephone basically is the sort of overarching storyline that weaves through the whole thing. The news is not just that I recognize what these things are now. The news is that there's going to be an animated series based on this webtoon coming from, of all people, Jim Henson Productions. Anna, welcome to the show, and I'm glad you like that. DC X-Blade, welcome to the show. The robot was created from the space spider humanoid Smith from the movie, and I personally loved how they did that. I'll have to look into that. I don't recall seeing that as a very specific tie-in. There are very clear design elements, I'll give you that, no question. But I don't remember that being a specific direct connection between the Lost in Space series. We've jumped to Lost in Space, folks, for a second here. And the Lost in Space movie, in which Gary Oldman played Smith and turned into... It would be kind of difficult, because if Gary Oldman played Smith and he turned into a robot that wound up going into a series in which the wonderful actress whose name I can't remember, oh my god, it's killing me that I can't remember her name, is playing Dr. Smith. That's a little weird, but anyway. Yes, it is wicked cute, Christian. Christian says, why is it so cute? I have no idea. That's the way it's drawn. So, used Band-Aid illustrations on Facebook or all platforms, apparently. That's the title that the artist goes by. Anyway, this animated series that's coming up is going to be made by the Jim Henson Company. They're gearing it towards young adult, which is interesting in that if you look at the series, it is a romantic drama, and there are, I would say, not young adult elements in the art. I would say pretty adult elements in the art at times. So I'm assuming that that aspect of it is going to be toned down, or hopefully if it's a young adult, removed. But, and again, I haven't read any of this other than scanning through it to find some actual image I could use for the show. So I don't know to what extent there is some of this stuff, more adult fare. But again, just scanning, I found some. So we'll see how that works. No information here about when this is going to happen. Yeah, there's nothing in here about when it's going to happen. They just announced it, so I'm assuming this won't be ready for 2020. I'm guessing this is a 2021 product. Might not be. But right after that, like literally just hours ago, it dropped that Webtoon, which is the platform that Lore Olympus sits on. It's a South Korean company. Is just announced a strategic partnership with Crunchyroll, in which Crunchyroll and Webtoon will together make anime. It doesn't say off what content. It doesn't say whether it's going to be content that's currently on Webtoon or not, although that would make sense. But Webtoon is making some big moves here. So good for them. And if the rest of their content is anything like Lore Olympus, or at least anywhere as popular as Lore Olympus is, or will become that, this is a good news for creativity and what seems to be at least very popular storytelling, if not probably very good storytelling. And as Christian keeps saying, super cute art. It is cute. We'll go back to that, so you know that's what he's talking about, not me. So anyway, moving on from that, we now have this news, and I really like this news. I'm really keen on this. That is Zoe Kravitz, the wonderful Zoe Kravitz, who has just been cast as Selina Kyle in the upcoming The Batman movie, opposite Robert Pattinson, of course, as Bruce Wayne / Batman. Jeffrey Wright playing Commissioner Gordon, which I hadn't seen. Wow, I love it. And apparently Jonah Hill is in talks for a villain role, which, Penguin, are we typecasting here? Because he could be pretty good at that. I chose this particular image of Zoe Kravitz because I like the short hair, and it ties into the short hair look of Selina Kyle from like Batman Year One, which is sort of what the Batman is, I guess, going to be like. Early on, a younger Bruce Wayne, younger Batman. And I hope they're going to go with this short-haired look like Selina Kyle had in the comic book run, Batman Year One. I don't know if that's the case. Who knows? Their designers are going to design whatever they want, but that would be cool for me. That said, she's Zoe Kravitz can vamp it up, sex it up like nobody, or like the best of them, I guess I should say. And that makes her, in addition to her being a good actress, that makes her a great pick for this. So, really looking forward to that. This is June 25th, 2021 is when this will come out. So we got a while to go before we get to see all of the brilliant work by director Matt Reeves, hopefully brilliant, Matt Reeves, by Robert Pattinson, and by Zoe Kravitz, and maybe Jonah Hill, and definitely Jeffrey Wright, because he's brilliant in everything he does. But I'm looking forward to it now even more than ever. I was one of the instantly on board when they announced Pattinson, because I've seen a number of his movies after, the nightmare that was the Twilight stuff, and he's really good. He's a really solid actor. Um, so anyway, check that out in summer 2021. All right, here we go. You've been waiting for Dogo, DC X-Blade, Lost in Space Season 2. The trailer dropped during New York Comic Con, and somehow I missed it to cover it in last week's show. So this is actually kind of a 2-week-old bit of news. But just because I missed it doesn't mean we don't need to talk about it. In fact, we definitely want to talk about it. The trailer looks gorgeous. You definitely get the impression that it is, in fact, finally a Lost in Space. They're going to, I think, multiple different worlds based on the look of it. Alien landscapes, aliens. Of course, they're trying to find. This is a spoiler if you haven't seen season 1, and so I apologize for this. But if you've seen the trailer for season 2, you know that at least in the early part of the season, they are trying to find Robot. And that's what this image is that's up there right now. Is at the end of the trailer, Robot is on some alien world. Looking like Robot is having some kind of an epiphany about itself, self-awareness. I mean, it stares at its hands for a while and then stares up at space. So I love the idea that it's a quest season where they basically are looking for somebody. I love the fact that means they're going to go to different worlds. It just all looks gorgeous. The writing last season was really solid. The acting was really solid. That doesn't look like it's changed. They've added some new cast members, which I'm really looking forward to. And we only have to wait until, well, the day before Christmas. Holy crap, Will Robinson, I've got hands, says Anthony. That's probably exactly what it said, if it actually ever said anything. So yeah, December 24th on Netflix. Great Christmas present for all of us that are really excited about this. So I'm really keen on it. I love the first series. Not much else to say about it. It looks great. I don't know whether or not they've taken out the sort of interpersonal conflict that was a big part of the multiple family dynamics that were in the first one. And if they did, I don't mind that. I'd rather this being more of a focus on the Robinsons and their quest to find their way home, because they are now actually lost in space. At the end of season 1, again, spoiler, they have to engage their drive and just go off into somewhere. So I'm not going to miss that adults butting heads about what the families should be doing, because frankly, the families, aren't around anymore for them. There are some, but it's not like they were dealing with a whole bunch of other peoples on Jupiter-type ships that were part of this colony attempt or colonization attempt, and it was a little too, family dynamic sort of thing, political dynamic sort of thing, without being written properly like Battlestar Galactica is, where their politics is cutthroat politics. And so I don't miss that. I don't miss the fact that it looks like that's not going to be there. This is going to be family lost on a quest, find Robot, find a way home, encounter stuff. And that's what the original series was like, and I'm looking forward to it. So, we're moving on to our very last topic, which is about what I figured it would take us a little more than a half an hour. I don't know if you saw this, folks. It's big news. That's Kevin Feige. That's Kevin Feige standing in front of a large Marvel sign, not a large Marvel Studio sign, which we probably should have seen as a sign of things to come, because Kevin Feige is now in addition to all of his other titles, the Chief Creative Officer, Marvel, period. That means that apparently according to what this article says, Walt Disney Company is going to be restructuring Marvel entirely so that every creative unit is going to be under Marvel Studios, not Marvel Entertainment, anything like that. Marvel Studios will be the overarching head of all of Marvel now. And under Marvel Studios will be Marvel TV, Marvel Family Entertainment, their animation division that's doing some the wonderful Squirrel Girl stuff, and Marvel Comics, Marvel Publishing. And Kevin Feige is going to be the chief creative officer of all of that. Now, the current president of Marvel Entertainment, which is the now apparently the sort of just overarching holding company, I guess, is going to continue to be Dan Buckley. Ike Perlmutter is the chairman. But unlike before, where all of the other divisions were sort of co-equal under Marvel Entertainment, so Marvel Publishing or Marvel Comics, Mr. Fox, you too. In response to Christian's, yes, I'm so happy. Christian says, Marvel, yes, I'm so happy. I gotta say, I'm happy too. I have some concerns. And they're minor concerns. My concern is that by making the structure now, let's see, let me do this, no longer Marvel Entertainment, and then a big branch that's like Marvel Studio, Marvel Comics, Marvel TV, all of them under Marvel Entertainment as linear equals. Now it's going to be Marvel Entertainment as a holding company, Marvel Studios, and then everything else under Marvel Studios. Which means that, in theory, or there's the possibility that Marvel Studios will define all of the creative direction of Marvel Comics going forward. And there's always been a fair amount of interaction since Marvel Studios became really popular, and frankly, since Disney took it over, because Disney likes synergy with its divisions where it can. That could mean that MCU content or MCU storylines, backstories, and so on are going to have to be the default in Marvel Comics going forward. And if that's the case, they'd have to wipe out decades, many decades of previously established canon backstory and storylines to fit what they sort of cherry-picked to make the MCU Marvel backstory. I don't know that it'll happen. They may let Marvel Comics run more independent and continue to create all of the crazy stuff that they can pull up into Marvel Studios for the movies or Marvel TV for the TV shows. But they may go more top-down. And it may be Marvel Studios says, okay, look, Tony's got to be dead. Spoiler for Endgame, for anybody who hasn't seen it. Going forward in the Marvel Comics, because that's the case in the MCU. And that would kind of suck. One more coughing joke. Thank you for your patience. I don't know that that's the case. None of us are going to know that. I do know Disney loves, like I said, synergy. They love consistency. However, there's also Disney loves money, and if you've got all sorts of different versions, if you've got a TV version and a film version and a comic book version and a cartoon version, you can sell more toys. Christian, why? We love you, Tony. We do love Tony. Probably time to move past it, Christian. But grieve in your own way. Who am I to tell you? So I'm not really sure if it is going to have that sort of push-down effect on Marvel Comics. I don't want it to. Definitely needed to get a drink there so I didn't cough again. I don't want it to have that push down effect, but it could. Um, from a creative standpoint, is that necessarily a bad thing? That's another thing. I don't know how much Kevin Feige is responsible for the creative, other than picking brilliant creative people. For the most part, we look at Kevin Feige overall as an amazing success, and he is. But Kevin Feige was also the executive producer, the studio head behind Thor: The Dark World. Um, some of the MCU movies that didn't quite behind Age of Ultron. Now, granted, Age of Ultron was hugely important in the ongoing MCU, but as a movie, meh, it was okay. It was exciting. It didn't rise to the level of a lot of the other really excellent movies that they have made. So I don't know where he is, chief creative officer. Does that mean he actually has story input, like the editor-in-chief at Marvel Comics does, which has had good and bad times? Sterling, Jim Sterling. Anybody remember him? Marvel Comics editor-in-chief, responsible for the first Secret Wars, which was a huge hit, and then an awful lot of stuff after that, which was really garbage. So, jury is out for me. Christian, R.I.P. Tony. There you go. Rest in peace, Tony. You can rest now, as Pepper said. So, jury is out for me. I think overall this is a hugely smart business decision by Disney to make this change at Marvel. What it does to the creative aspect of things other than the studio is still to be seen. And I hope it doesn't do anything to tamp down that creativity, particularly in Marvel Comics. I don't know if Hickman had gone to Feige and said, hey, this is what I'm going to do to reboot the X-Men with these two interconnected 6-issue arcs called House of X and Power of X, and boy, when things are done, the world is going to be really different for the X-Men. Whether Feige would have said, that's brilliant, let's go with that. I love that. I don't know. Maybe he would, because it would solve his problem of how to get the X-Men into the overall MCU, but Luminous agreed. I hope Marvel comic books remain a place where creators can try something new, like Hickman's, brilliant, absolutely mind-bending sci-fi opus that House of X and Powers of X were, and it sets up a radically different world for Marvel Mutants going forward in the comic books. I really hope that having Feige as a movie studio guy in charge of all creative for everything Marvel now, like Luminous says, doesn't slow down or impede any of that, creative juice in Marvel Comics, where they're allowed to try stuff that's really interesting and different. But we'll have to see. From a MCU standpoint, this is brilliant, and it's one of the best decisions they've made. Giving Feige complete creative control over studio and TV, anything outside the comics, I think is great. We'll see what happens with his creative control in the comics itself going forward. But fingers crossed. We can't, the guy's clearly a money-making machine for Marvel and Disney, making some of, obviously, the most popular movies ever made, the movie that has made the most money in the history of movies ever, and that says something. The fact that he's sticking with Marvel while he's doing this is also pretty impressive. Having made that kind of money, I'm guessing that Kevin Feige gets pitches from every studio, every billionaire that wants to create their own studio, literally weekly, saying, "Hey, ditch Marvel, ditch Disney, and come with us." And there are a lot of people with a lot of egos who would go, "Yeah, obviously somebody sees my value," and jump ships. So Luminous, I had heard that there that was a rumor. I haven't seen any further confirmation of that. Luminous asks, is Kevin Feige also going to make Star Wars movies? I would guess no, now that he has this title. I think he is a Marvel person, and a Marvel person until he leaves Marvel, and that he's not going to jump universes or franchises. That may not be the case, but I don't think so. If you've been named Chief Creative Officer of literally everything that Marvel does, you're probably not going to jump over and make a Star Wars movie or produce a Star Wars movie. First off, I don't know if you'd have the time. He has Phase 4, which includes all of the Disney Plus stuff, on his plate. And that, when is he going to find time to make a Star Wars movie? I don't see it happening. But again, I could be wrong. The guy clearly can juggle an awful lot of balls in the air, get a lot of spinning plates going at the same time, and make them all land pretty well. So, again, one, kudos to Kevin Feige for getting this position. Kudos to Disney/Marvel for realizing that if that's what it took to keep him in their house, literally printing cash for them every single year, then that was a smart move to make. And we'll have to see if my only concern is it plays out at all, and that's what happens to Marvel Comics. But that's it, folks. That is our show. We talked. Quick heads up as sort of a could we please, could we not, also an update story. Last week we talked about Blizzard, Blitzchung, the ban for that one, literally 2 short sentence comment about supporting protesters in Hong Kong, and how Blizzard basically was pro-tyrannical scum for doing it. They have backed off a little bit. His ban and the ban of the 2 Twitch Blizzard community people that he was on their stream has been dropped from 1 year to 6 months. They will pay him all the earnings he's made up to this point, whereas initially they were basically just not going to pay him for the earnings he made, which was an extra crappy thing to do. But they've also said categorically that their decision had absolutely nothing to do with any potential response from China to his statement. That controversial political statements have no place on their platforms. So I'm looking forward to them banning anybody who says vote for Trump. Looking forward to them, and I really hope that they don't apply that in reality and ban anybody who supports any LGBTQ legislation, because that's political. It's bullshit. We all know it's bullshit. They did it for China. 100%. There's no question whatsoever. And they get this much of an attaboy for reducing the punishment and giving Blitzchung back the money that he won. He did the work. He won it. This much. And then the rest of this entire stance is, where are my hands? There they go. Is Blizzard, you're still a bunch of assholes. So there we go. A little update there for you folks. And with that, we wrap up the show. I am not going anywhere this weekend except to a wonderful wedding with a bunch of really wonderful people. And I'm looking forward to that greatly. And then we have a team at Rhode Island Comic Con in 2 weekends. No, 3 weekends. Um, and then Super Mega Fest in Framingham. We'll have people at Anime NYC. Gosh, what else? There's other stuff on the calendar, and I can't remember. So anyway, if you're going to be at any of those places, look us up, get pictures, video. Just say hi. Don't give us colds, please. And on that note, thank you all for showing. Thank you very much for your interactivity. Wonderful questions. I really enjoyed those. And we will see you next Tuesday for another edition of Nerd Week Live, if we don't see you at a con before then.